Last week, Daniel asked me, hey, is there any reason to use groups? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, containers do everything that groups does, but better. And I was like, that's an interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but it turns out that Daniel was right. So in today's show, what we're going to do is we're going to build a pop-up first using PowerApps groups, and then we're going to turn around and do the same thing in containers, show you how that's better, more functional, has a lot more flexibility. It's just generally a good idea. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911, those guys. And today, we're going to talk about groups versus containers in PowerApps. And so the idea here is that, we've used groups forever, right? And honestly, I don't use them enough. But groups are actually this thing, they're a logical construct. They're not actually a control. And so sometimes that causes some weirdness and some challenges. And so recently what we've discovered is that by using containers instead of groups, that you can get a better result, easier to use, and more flexible options. But don't fret, if you've already built everything using groups, we're also going to talk about how to change a group over to a container. Or if you don't like containers, we'll talk about how to get rid of containers without losing all your work. So we're going to kind of go through all the ins and outs of that. And we're going to do that by building a couple of different pop-ups because let's face it, pop-ups are the number one place that most people encounter this, even though we do use groups and containers in other places, especially like when we're building elements, visual things that we kind of want to stay together and move around. So yeah. All right, that's enough of the blah, blah, blah. Let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. All right, so just to show you what we're going to build real quick, I made this lovely little picture of me and Buddy Boo Boo. And then here, if we go down, we say rate it. We get a little pop-up. You say, how cute is Buddy? It's 5 stars, of course. And then we hit save and we get a little thanks for voting. You're done. It all goes away. Okay, so this is what we're going to build. So how would we build something like that, right? Let's just pop in, we do a new screen, and let's do it kind of the way that we would classically have done it. And so, first off, we would throw ourselves an image control on here, doop, drag it somewhere there, and then we will just throw in a Buddy and Nicola picture. Aw. Then we'll throw in a button, and then we'll say, hey, we'll put the button at the top. We'll say, hey, if you press this button, we want to update context. And then we're just going to say var show pop-up. I know, very technical, right? We'll set that to true. Bingo, bango, that'll make a variable. All right. So then you would say, okay, we want to first insert a rectangle here. We'll drag this to kind of take the whole screen. Remember, we're going to build this the first time using kind of that groups methodology. And so then we would take that, we would say, all right, let's turn the fill here into 169, 169, 169, and then 0.75, just like so. And if you built a bunch of pop-ups before and you're like, I know all this, remember you can always use the chapters down below to jump ahead. So then we'll also then insert ourselves another rectangle. We'll kind of make this one a white. Let's do this to change its color to white. And then we'll throw a label inside there and say, hi, Buddy. Buddy's currently over there trying to find the right spot to sleep. And then we'll just have a button to say, hey, we finished that thing, right? Because we're not worried about saving the data or any of that. We're just trying to build out the functionality. And so basically we'll just say, once we've done that, for the moment, we'll call this done, right? So then what would you do? You'd say update context, var show pop-up, back to false. Okay, so there's our little pop-up. Now, typically what we'd say is go over here to the left and find all the pieces. So the 2 rectangles, the label and the button. So where you hold down the shift key and select all 4 of those. We'd right click that and we'd say group. Okay, and then you go up here and you click on the group and you say visible and say, hey, visible be when var show pop-up. So this is the first lesson we want to understand. So groups are actually not a container. They're not a control. They're not an actual object that we can adjust. They are a logical construct. Just a fancy way of saying this is one of those things that makes it easier in Studio, but it doesn't really have any advantages. It doesn't have any pieces, right? Like notice I can select button 7. I can't just select the group because there's nothing there to select. Also, like when we went here, so with the group whole selected, we set the visible to var show pop-up. What actually all it did was it went and cascaded. If we look at every one of these controls, they now say var show pop-up. So by setting group, it said, hey, all the controls that have these properties, we're going to go ahead and set that. So with a group selected, you'll notice there's, some things, right? They've all got on selects, they've all got X's, they all got Y's, widths, so all the things they have in common, it can set those for you, but it's just really changing all those individually. So if we want to add something else to the group, we're like, oh, let's make the group show up. We wanted to add that star rating, so we insert here. Where is that? It's an input, isn't it? It's a new menu. I'm not sure I'm totally comfortable with it. Throw this in here. So we add this, look, it's outside the group. So then what you have to do is you have to select the group and that control, and then you would say group them, and they would go into a new group called group 2. So it would have lost your naming. But what's really important to understand is if you check the visible property, it's blank because they all don't have the same visible property. If you look at rating 2, its visible property is true. Once again, because groups don't, right? It's just a construct. It's just a way to push settings around and kind of keep things together. So we then manually have to remember to change this. And I can tell you all the time I forgot to do that. Okay. But then now they all have the same setting. So another important thing to understand about these being a logical construct is if you're doing, or not if you're doing, you should be doing accessibility. You should be thinking about how does your app work on other devices, right? And for example, screen readers do not honor groups because groups don't exist. They're ghost. And so to that end, a screen reader would not know to show all these things in order. It would just be reading across one at a time instead of looking at the group as a whole. So another negative for groups. Also with this, remember in the last one, what did I do? I ended up having that second pop-up, right? So when we clicked on rate it and then we said save, we showed the second pop-up. So in a group scenario, what would happen there is I actually have to make 2 groups because groups cannot be nested inside of each other either. Boo, right? You feel like this is like the beat on groups thing. It is. But groups also do not allow you to nest. So if you want to have 2 groups, then you'd have to have them independent. So then you got to, once again, manage all the settings independent because they're really just a bunch of independent controls loosely coupled together. So we would not really want to do that. Now, what if instead, though, we wanted to do this same thing as a container? So let's just let's do this. Let's duplicate the screen, right? I'm trying to think of the fastest way to show you this. And then let's just delete the group, right? Bye-bye group. So let's just start over here again where we want to build this. Okay, so what first thing we want to do is we're going to actually go to insert, and then under layout, there is going to be container. So remember, horizontal container, vertical containers, those are primarily used in responsive scenarios because you add controls and it lays them out. It spaces them out in a very either, horizontal or vertical way, right? Makes sense. So, but the container, terrible name, the container doesn't do that. It's a blank workspace. So the container, gosh, I gotta quit saying that. The way that it works is that you add things inside there, and the top left corner of the container is the 0 point. So everything that you add in there is relative, but you can control things. So with horizontal and vertical, right, things go where they want to. This container, you can put things anywhere you want. So to build our pop-up this time, what are we going to do? We're going to add this container. Okay, we're going to take it and stretch it. And then instead of throwing a rectangle in here, I can just change the container's color to be, our dim gray, right? So we'll just go up here to fill. And then we'll do our RGBA 169, 169, 169.75. How many times in my life have I typed that? A bunch. So, right, because look, containers are a control. They have their own properties. That's one of the cool things about this. So then now what do we do? Now inside my container, now we can insert, and so this is up to you. We're going to stay on par with what we did before. We're going to insert another rectangle. But really what I wanted to do here, I'll show you when we get done, is I really wanted to put in a container inside the container. That would be the ideal thing. You know what? We're just going to do it. Delete that. So then in my container, I'm going to nest a container, right? Remember, you can't do this with groups. But so then I'm going to use this one as the white rectangle. Once again, we can set its color. Boom. But then now what do you want? Now we want to insert inside there the text label. Joop. And then, right, what was this? This was hi, buddy. And then once we did that, then we could also insert the button and put it down here. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Shane, why don't you make this one a vertical container? Because you want this to stack vertical. I love that idea. This video is not about vertical containers, but that's what I probably would really prefer you did here. But what I want to show you is that, look, if you look at this button, I want to look at its X property for a second. So its X is 172. If we drag it to the left, it is 0. Up here, its X and Y are both 0, right? You can see it over here on the right as well. So remember that all of the pieces inside a container, this is their 0 point. So when you're setting their properties of where they go, you're using the container, to kind of set those coordinates. So kind of a good thing to keep in mind. I know that confused one of my students 2 weeks ago, so I want to point that out. But look, so now we got a container. Inside the container, we've got the button, the label, and then what else we had? We have we'll add the rating in just a second just to show you. Okay, so that's what we did last time. And so now to set the visible, look, if I go up here to container 1, I'm going to set visible to say var show pop-up. Now what's really important, right? This we'll make sure it works. It does. And so then we'll make sure that this button hides it, right? So we'll go to on select just so we can tag through things. So if we go here, we go to var show, or no, it's not that, it's update context, var show pop-up false. Okay, now what's super important to understand here though, is that if we look at this button's visible property, what's it going to be? It's going to be true. Why? Because we're not changing the visible property, right? Changing the container's properties does not affect all the objects inside there. But because all of this stuff is inside of container 1, if container 1's not visible, then nothing inside of it is visible. That's where you start to really kind of think, all right, I got some interesting things going on here, right? Because now if we go into container 2 and insert our starter control again, rating, throw it in the right spot. Once again, I did not need to go set its visible property. I didn't have to go combine groups. It's just in the right spot. Very cool. And what if we want to do the whole fun game where we're going to show 2 containers, right? So we want to have the thanks for saving, right? So we'll go back to this button and we'll say, hey, when you select this button, we don't want you to set var pop-up. We want to make a new one. Var show thanks. Probably should have been give thanks, right? That would have been a nicer thing to say. More positivity, Shane. Get it together. But if we do that, so that's the variable we want to sit there. What we're going to do now is we're going to insert another, we're going to go into container 1. We're going to insert another container. And so then we're going to call this container thanks. And so this one, all right, just to kind of keep what we did last time, we'll kind of throw this in the middle. Its fill was blue. And then we inserted a label. And look, we're just right in con thanks. I love that this just kind of works. I don't have to think. All right, so we'll say, thanks for saving. Oh, what did I do? Cancel. Press the button. I didn't mean to. Now the ideas things. Oh gosh, stop suggestion. Yes, please. All right. All because I fat fingered one thing. Terrible. All right. And then what did I need? Oh, I just need a button to make this go away. So insert a button. Oh, that blue on blue button does not look very nice, but we'll just change its fill to be red. There we go. We'll say done. And then on this one, we're going to say update context var show pop-up to false. And then what else? Var show thanks to false. Boop, boop. And so then now we would go to con thanks and we'd say, hey, your visible is var show thanks. So then now we press this, that one shows up, we press done, they all go away. Nested containers, yes, right? So if you have those complex scenarios, we've got multiple pop-ups, multiple things going on, right? I got the one parent container, its whole job really was just to be the gray background. And then I've got these other 2 containers that are then providing a different functionality inside there. Each one is independent of the other. their visibles are different, right? So that one is, so container things only shows in that case. This one, I think it's visible, is just always true, right? Because basically if container one is showing, I want to show this one. If I wanted to hide it, then I could add logic there and it's not affecting the controls. Yes. Such a better way to build. Okay. So then your questions are going to be, well, Shane, what if I'm using groups today? I'm buying what you're selling. Good job, you. Then how do I get rid of it? Well, I'm glad you asked that. So go here to groups. We're going to take this one. We're going to duplicate this screen. And so this one's currently using groups, right? So one of the things that I did not know until I started researching for this video, I can actually go to this rate group and look, there is a thing that says add the container. It will automatically turn it into a container and put all the controls inside there. What? I know. So then now if we say rate it, oh, the container's on top. So then what do we need to do? We need to then go and set the containers visible to be var show, what is that? Var show pop-up. And so then now if we press the rate it, we get our lovely how cute is Buddy. Very neat, right? Now, one of the things I probably would have done was I would have selected all of these controls ahead of time and set them back to the way, right? Their visibles are all var show pop-up. I would just set them all to true so they acted more like I would expect them to. So quick little change there. But so then now we've got that main pop-up. You could also then start to clean up, right? We know that we could get rid of this rectangle if we wanted to because, we know that's just providing the gray. We know how to do that with the container. But so just something to keep in mind. You can take your containers and start to combine them. Or sorry, not combine them. You can turn your groups into containers. That's what I was trying to say. So then if we do the same thing with this, we will say, hey, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cheat and do what I meant to last time. We'll say visible. So just set all of these to true. So now it's all popped up, which is super confusing. Then we will say add a container. It makes its own container. And then we will say contain, thank you. And then we will set the visible just for the container to be var show thanks. Boom. And then that one's on top of that one. So then if we press save, we got what we wanted. We do done. So, and then once again, you can start to rework this. You could then take this container, like, you know what? I want that one inside the other one, right? Then Control X, go in here, Control V. Now that container's inside that container, and you can start to work through all that. Kind of fun, right? What if you go the other way? Let's go here. Let's see, was it this one we did it on? So what if you decided that you really hated containers, right? Also keep in mind that with containers, you can right click right here and you can say, or not right click, click the ellipses, or right clicking works too actually. And you can say remove container and then it will just remove the container and it'll just drop all the controls on the screen, right? So if we go here to, yeah, let's just do that, remove container. And so then now all my controls have been elevated to container one. And if we just remove container one, let's just remove that one. There we go. So now all the controls are visible, right? It's going to break functionality. I got to rework everything, but I didn't lose all the controls. So if you do go to containers and you want to get rid of them, then that is possible. Now, the only quick little nuggets with containers I want to make sure you know is that inside of a container, you cannot put the PDF viewer, data tables, or the old web barcode scanner. I don't know why you'd really use any of those controls, but all three of those are not supported in containers. So just a small nugget there. Also, explore this container type. And if you start to think, wouldn't it be nice if this stuff all lined up? Wouldn't it be nice if this stuff did different sizing? That's where you might start finding yourself saying, hey, maybe it's time to look at the responsive stuff, right? I'll put a link up there to one of my getting started with responsive videos. But those, the horizontal and vertical containers, they're similar, but they are a lot more particular about where content goes, which can make them more challenging or more helpful depending on what you want. So that's it for today. What'd you think? Did you like this? Do you buy into the whole idea that PowerApps groups bad, containers good? I hope so, right? Thanks to Daniel for nudging me along. I would have never had this epiphany moment without him. Yeah, comments, thoughts, any of that stuff, leave them below. I always try to check those out. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. And with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Hey, me again. Before you go, click on the subscribe button, right? Join the list of 100,000 plus people that have subscribed already. Or if you need any help, right? Check us out at PowerApps 911. We do big projects, little projects, we do training, we do everything, and we can help you. Or if you want to see more videos, you probably do, then just click on the playlist above. Cool? Thanks, and have a great day.